surround yourself with just good people. And I think people muddy those waters, right, of what a good person is. It's pretty clear to me, right? Just like show up, be friendly, do the right thing. I don't care if you're left, right, whatever. It does. Just be a good person. Surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up. And second, surround yourself with people that are, like you mentioned, the light years ahead and where you want to go, because that up levels you very quickly.
Welcome to Small Business Pivots, a podcast designed for small business owners. I'm your host, Michael Morrison, a small business coach and founder of Boss, where we make business ownership simplified for success so that you can create a business that works without you. To learn more, go to businessownershipsimplified.com. And be sure to hang out to the end of this episode for my recap and Coach's Corner, where I challenge you to take action on one thing that will move the needle in your business. Our guest today is Kyle Walbrun. Kyle was born and raised in the Midwest in a small town in Wisconsin where he was taught the value of teamwork and dedication. He graduated with honors at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where he triple majored in marketing, finance, and communication. He then packed up his belongings and moved to Colorado for new adventures, enhanced quality of life, and to start a company focused on assisting business professionals. Today, Kyle is the founder and CEO of EfficientAide, an assistant company. As well, Kyle is a joke teller, sports fanatic, llama farmer, and outdoor enthusiast. He has a huge passion for helping professionals work effectively and proficiently through a proven process of delegation. Throughout Kyle's career, he has partnered with a wide variety of business leaders, strategizing on how to buy back their time and eliminate their worry. Kyle is an avid outdoorsman and thoroughly enjoys camping and hiking with his wife, Janelle. In general, Kyle is very personable, generous, and loves to have a good laugh. We're going to have fun today. So let's get to Kyle now and learn how you can buy back your time and scale your business so you can own a business that works without you. All right. So welcome to another Small Business Pivots podcast. Today we have a special guest from around the world. Where are you coming to us from today?
Yeah, I'm joining you, Michael, today from Evergreen, Colorado.
Where is that at?
Yeah, so Evergreen, Colorado is about 25 miles west of Denver, in the foothills. So on your way to ski country, I'm about halfway in the middle.
Very cool. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your company because nobody can say their name like you can. So
yeah, really appreciate that, Michael. And again, just thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to speak
Absolutely.
with you today. I'm Kyle Walbrun. I am the founder and CEO of a company called EfficientAide, and we are an assistant company. And in short, really what we do is we have kind of three levels of service. We provide fractional virtual assistants. So business leaders who want to buy back their time, get their nights and weekends back. So check their emails, schedule their appointments, all the stuff that's not the highest and best use of their time. We also provide a recruiting program. So for folks that say, Kyle, I don't necessarily need virtual. I want someone in person and I want someone full time. We have a really great knack for identifying that talent since we've been doing it for over a decade. So we have a recruiting program called our Find Your Assistant program. And lastly, Michael, we have some folks that say, Kyle, I don't need an assistant. I have one, but I want to up-level them. I want to invest in them. I want them to learn some tips and tricks from your years of experience. We also have a Train Your Assistant program as well. So in short, really, we're an assistant company trying to find if any sort of avenue we can support leaders to make sure they can buy their time back and focus on growing their businesses.
That is very important because you cannot replace time, right?
Yeah, exactly correct.
Yeah. So, well, let's go back to your childhood because I found that a lot of business owners went through some trials and tribulations, possibly. Those that didn't, congratulations. I know that's very few, but anything that may have stuck in your mindset that kept you from progressing as fast as you wish you would have?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. I'll give you a little, without getting too far in the weeds, I'll give you kind of my backstory a little bit of how this formed. So I grew up in the Midwest. I was born and raised in Wisconsin, actually, and it was really unique. I did not take a very stereotypical path to becoming a founder and entrepreneur. So I founded EfficientAide about 12 years ago. when I was like 22 years old. And it was very unique. When I grew up in Wisconsin, I grew up in a very typical Midwest household. My parents were blue collar. But what was really unique about it, so I didn't have really any entrepreneurial father. I didn't come upon or inherit a business. But what was really interesting, Michael, is, my dad worked at a mill. He's been, 30 something years. So what really taught me is I didn't necessarily learn the business side of life, but I learned about hard work, learned about dedication, loyalty. But I also realized that I have the utmost respect for my mom and dad, right? They brought me up in a great life, but I also knew that that wasn't the life that I wanted to live, right?
Are
I
you
could
my
see some of
brother?
those. What's that? Sorry?
I said, are you my brother? It sounds like we lived in the same household.
Yeah, and so, my dad would come home and I could tell he's just drained, exhausted, working on the floor. And I have the utmost respect for the work he did and still does. But I also kind of knew that wasn't really the path that I wanted to take. And I was fortunate enough that I had an uncle who did have more of that entrepreneurial mindset. So it was really unique for me. I learned, all right, hard work, dedication from my parents, that loyalty, but also realized that wasn't really the life and path for me. And then I saw this other side of life with my uncle who was running his own business and seeing the freedoms that came along with that. So really at a very young age, Michael, I was really fortunate. I mean, I'm talking as far back as middle school. I knew, hey, I'm gonna run a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. And it's really interesting actually because I grew up playing ice hockey. I was a huge hockey player growing up. But you probably can't necessarily tell from Zoom. I'm 5'8", like a buck 50 soaking wet. I wasn't going to the league, Michael. So I was like, all right, that path is probably stopping there. And I'm going to take this path of entrepreneurship. And I think for me, Michael, to answer your question directly, something I wish is I had a really great mentor, my uncle, on the business side of life. But, I think for me, I didn't necessarily have that upbringing where I was surrounded by these folks and surrounded by business leaders. My parents weren't entrepreneurs. So I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own, growing up. But keeping that mindset, Michael, that I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, I found the right avenues and I connected with the right folks. I was definitely the stereotypical guy that instead of getting jobs in college at maybe the sandwich shop, I was interning in the marketing department or, with various businesses, just trying to surround myself, with as much mentorship and, business insight as possible. And I was grateful enough that when I came out of college, I had one like corporate gig. I worked a sales job for about 4 months out of college, doing cold calling, cold emailing, and realized after 4 months, I said, this is just not what I'm grooving on. Oh my God. I was doing 80 cold calls and 100 cold emails per day was my quota.
Wow.
And I'm grateful for that opportunity. It really taught me how to communicate and how to reach out and connect with people. But after about 4 months, I was like, this isn't it. Now's the time. I'm gonna start my own gig. And it was really unique. I spent a few days in my apartment, like, okay, what am I gonna do? And in probably a matter of 72 hours, Michael, from the time I quit the full-time corporate gig, I created EfficientAide. Really with the sense of when I was in college and throughout my life, I had this blend between a little bit of professional experience, a little bit of that blue collar, I could relate to people experience. And in college, I did a triple major in marketing, finance, and communication. And I realized, hey, I don't really want to focus on one area. I like doing a lot of little different things. And I was like, wow, there's got to be a service for that. If someone who says, hey, I don't want to hire 10 different contractors. I want to hire support that can maybe dabble a little bit. And ultimately, I formed EfficientAide. That was about 12 years ago now, and started off providing just virtual support for business leaders. And now it's evolved into our three main service lines. And, we're supporting companies and small businesses all the way up to Fortune 100 leaders all over the country.
I almost hate to say what I'm fixing to say because I usually save like the nuggets till the very end, but it really does boil down to people. If people are wondering how to be successful and how to pivot their company to where they can get to that next level. Because there was a social media post this morning that just said, what do you think crushes business goals from a business owner before they even get started? And I quickly responded, people. Like, they're with the
Yeah.
wrong people, they're circling with the wrong people, they hire the wrong people, and you're a people solver. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, that's really the key I have found to most business success. The company, I'm a business coach, and so most of the companies we work with, when they come to us, they literally, some of them, their only problem or challenge is having the wrong people in the wrong
Yeah.
bus on the right seat, that whole thing
Yeah.
there. So when you first started, you came up with this idea. What were some of those early challenges in your business that you overcame? Because I know a lot of business owners that they've been in business as long as you have, and they're still operating like they were on day one. They just can't get past that
Yeah.
part of the business.
Yeah, there was lots of trials and tribulations throughout it. The first and foremost, when I first started the company, I was 22. I didn't know anything,
Yeah.
So the first
But you
challenge
thought you
was,
did.
oh, absolutely.
We all
Oh,
did.
absolutely. And, so the first challenge was just navigating what being an entrepreneur and starting a business was, from the legal side and the LLC components to it, all the way up to operations and efficiencies. So that was my first big challenge. And I didn't have a large network of, business folks. A lot of my buddies and people I was with a lot of my folks went a different route, and they were working corporate gigs. So I didn't have a lot of that mentorship. And so that was my first big challenge, was just finding and surrounding myself with the right people that can help guide me through the process. So that was first. And then second was, and it's a common challenge I think a lot of folks face, is scale, right? Scale and growth. Because initially it was just me. It was EfficientAide, but initially it was just basically me providing the support. And that leap from, being a solopreneur to, hey, I want to build this and I want to hire staff and take on more clients, that's a really tough nut to crack, right? Is
Yeah.
scale with protecting your core values and protecting quality. So I think that was probably my biggest challenge, was how do I scale and how do I get the right people in the right seats to join on this journey together. And the way I overcame it, Michael, was really reaching out to various peer groups, mastermind groups of business-minded folks. It was pretty common. I was probably the youngest guy in these groups by 10, 20 years. But I always find, to do extraordinary things, you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And whenever I talk to any younger folks that are looking to start a business, I said, if you're not feeling a little uncomfortable, you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah.
I think that's a big challenge, is putting yourself in those positions. And then another key component that really helped me a lot, Michael, was wrapping myself around structure and process. And I happen to find that by finding EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And that was
Traction.
really critical for me, to work with an implementer, start employing some of their tools in the EOS toolbox. And that provided a lot of structure for me that helped me overcome a lot of those challenges I mentioned.
Those are all great points. Almost every guest that we've had on this podcast has mentioned something about a coach or a mentor. And so I'm not plugging my own play here, but it is important. I'm a business coach and I have 3 coaches. Now,
Yep.
I always follow up with, I'm not in that bad a shape. They're all for a different purpose.
Yeah.
So people will say, you're a business coach and you need 3. I don't know if I want to hire you. And I'm like, no. We're human. And I have an accountability coach. I have a
Yeah.
business coach that's been light years ahead of where I'm at, because I always say that business owners, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So to hear you say that is, I would say, pat yourself on the back, because most young entrepreneurs don't understand the value and the power of that. But the more people like you keep saying it, hopefully it will stick, because that really is the true difference between being stuck in your business and getting to the next level, is just asking for help or getting help from somebody. Would you find that to be true? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of vulnerability that goes into it. And I think you're spot on. I still face that right now. I'm 34 years old. I will never sit up here and say I have the secrets, right? There's still stuff you don't know what you don't know. So absolutely, the two pieces that I always find is critical that we're kind of touching on now. Surround yourself with, in two different ways. Surround yourself with just good people. And I
Yeah.
think people muddy those waters, right, of what a good person is. It's pretty clear to me, right? Just
Yeah.
like show up, be friendly, do the right thing. I don't care if you're left, right, whatever. It does. Just be a good person. Surround yourself with people that are going to lift you up. And second, surround yourself with people that are, like you mentioned, the light years ahead and where you want to go, because that up levels you very quickly. So I think it's absolutely surrounding yourself with the right people. And part of it, as being a business owner and entrepreneur yourself, part of it is taking the leap. And, I think that is critical. I mean, Michael, I had no seed money. I didn't inherit money. I didn't inherit a business. I had nothing to my name. I was a fresh out of college. But it's just having that mindset to take the leap, surrounding yourself with the right people. And what I like to always do is inspire folks to say it can be done. I didn't grow up with anything special besides just a drive and the ability to want to do something extraordinary. And it can be done. It's scary as
Yeah.
heck, as
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
it's
Every day.
possible. It's possible to do.
Yeah, it is possible. I've also found that with most small business owners, you can have 2 employees, 10, 20, 30, but until you find that one good special person, it's really hard to start scaling. And that's what you really do. So can you offer any tips or advice for business owners that they might have a staff, but they don't have that one? How can they find that one?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, Michael. In our areas of expertise, specifically, kind of, honing in more on the admin, executive assistant, virtual assistant realm, I find that's critical for any business leader. The first and foremost, I think, critical piece is getting a really well-trained assistant to help you out. And I
Agreed.
want to emphasize well-trained, right? And that's a common misconception of, hey, I'm going to bring someone on, I'm going to have to invest all this time and processes for them. If you get the right person, the right seat, and they're well-trained, you present problems to them and they present solutions based on their experience. And that's exactly how we like to operate at EfficientAide, right? Is be solutions oriented. Because there's a few things that really are critical with that role for any small business. And that's where I like to start, because there's a few things that happen when you bring on that well-trained assistant. One, two things can happen. You've now bought back a bunch of your time because you're not in the weeds doing all these administrative type tasks. So now you have time to actually intelligently think about scaling your business. You actually have time to intelligently invest time into bringing on more strategic, maybe C-level or higher level hires. Or the other thing you can do, Michael, that I always find is really critical with that time back, some of these small business owners can do nothing with that time they just bought back. They can use it to focus on mental health. They can use it to maybe make their kid's soccer game for once and take care of maybe other sides of life that we all know directly contribute to the professional side. So that's always my biggest first step when I'm talking with small business owners. Let's start there. Who's your right-hand person? Who's getting all this off your plate? Who's going to help project manage things for you, give you those nudges day to day to make sure things aren't slipping through the cracks? Get that dialed in first, because then it frees you up for all these other possibilities of goals or scale or other strategic hires. And that's my experience. My experience is small business owners that make the leap, let go of the vine, and delegate to a well-trained assistant. I see a direct correlation into growth in their business or just quality of life.
You're listening to Small Business Pivots. This podcast is sponsored by Boss, where business ownership is simplified for success. Boss helps business owners create a business that runs without them with business consulting services, business loans, and much, much more. Go to businessownershipsimplified.com to learn why small business success starts with Boss. If you're enjoying the podcast and want to stay up to date with all of our episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a positive review. Your support means the world to us, and it helps others discover the show too. Let's get back to our guest.
So when you bring people on, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Because I know that business owners often ask, kind of mentioned it earlier, but like I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, I do, but I'm saying a lot of business owners will ask that question.
Yeah. The first thing I recommend, for most small business owners that are looking like where to start, recruiting and hiring is time consuming. It's very, very laborious. So my first recommendation is don't try to be an expert in an area you may not be an expert in. Leverage folks. We're one of many offerings. There's other assistant companies out there, of course. So leverage the folks that have dedicated. I've dedicated 12 years to dialing this process in. So I think first it's identifying a reputable source to identify where to get this assistant from. Because a really great agency approach, it's the biggest misconception of hiring the assistant is this is going to take a lot of my time to ramp this person up. So what happens is you don't do it and then they're in the rat race, right? And also you have this thing where I just have a bunch of 5-minute tasks. It's going to take longer for me to train the EA to do it than to do it myself. Well, I know you can attest this, Michael. I mean, when you have 25-minute tasks, it adds up pretty darn quick, And so the way I like to recommend starting is find a reputable, agency that has a proven track record of sourcing and providing quality assistance, because they'll take all the lift off your plate. So with us, when someone approaches and says, Kyle, I'm really darn busy. I don't know how to delegate. I don't even know what this looks like. I recommend, hey, we get on a first in our process, you get on a call. We talk about your needs, and you can come prepared with that call with nothing, right? You don't have to come prepared with your list and how you want to do it. Just say, Kyle, let's talk. And we come with specific questions to learn about what you're doing day to day, week to week, where you want your business to go, to provide proactive recommendations on what the scope of work or what we could do to solve that problem is. And that's critical. We take all that lift off the plate. And then what also is great is we already have a bench of really well-trained quality assistants on our team. So you don't need to go out and find them. We have them. They're trained, they're ready. We just need to find the right match for you based on personality, skill set, geographic zone, whatever it may be. And then we can say, hey, you mentioned these problems. Here's a package that's going to solve those problems. And here's a person that's going to show up turnkey to guide you through that process. And it's pretty quick, then there's a little bit of time where there's some onboarding and rapport building, but then our folks are able to direct those conversations, say, let's talk about some of your pain points. Here's exactly a few ways I can solve them. And the business owner to be able to say, yep, I like option B. Kyle, go. Let's start there and go with that. And we're providing value day one. We're immediately starting to take things off the plate. So I think the biggest takeaway in our process is for any small business owners are out there that are stuck in that rat race, working the 60 hours a week, the nights and weekends, identifying and working with an assistant does not need to be a huge process that takes up all your time. If you're working with the right folks, they'll guide it and they'll take the least amount of your time to provide the maximum amount of output. And high level, that's how we like to operate in sourcing that. And really, like I mentioned, our niche is high caliber folks. So you're not training them how to be an assistant. They're coming prepared with best practices and templates and things they've seen work with other leaders. We just need to customize it to how Michael likes things done. We mold it, tailor-made the support, and we start implementing right away.
You brought up so many critical points in that comment because, well, number one, and I want to share this to help business owners think differently, because sometimes we can have a one-track mind. Like I'm hearing you say, hire an assistant company to find you an assistant, but that goes for everything. Like don't waste your time. Like I see so much time wasted with business owners. Don't waste your time on something you're not qualified to do. The first one that they usually do is accounting. They try to do their own accounting. And I'm like, why? First of all, every time QuickBooks makes an adjustment on their dashboard, you have to go find how to do this, how to do that, how to and you're doing it wrong anyways, I promise you, because I know financials. Yeah. And so I know you're doing it wrong. So you're wasting your time. Well, and then I hear, well, I don't have the money to hire. And I'm like, okay, if that takes kind of what you mentioned, that 60 hours off your plate or can reduce it by 5, go use that 5 hours and get more sales. So you can afford that. Like, stop doing things that you're not qualified to do. That is such a great point. I can jump on that bandwagon forever because I just see it all the time. Videos, social media. I'm like, social media, you're not getting a sale today from social media. That's a long-term play. Go make calls like what you did learning. I love that you that was your first experience in the business world, if you will, was making calls because it
Yep.
showed you the power of how much time it takes and the work that's involved. What skills did you bring from those to get sales today? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's really interesting, based on the sales. And first, just to close the point you made, I'm on that train as well, Michael. We could probably spend a whole nother podcast, talking about that because what I always tell small business owners, it's all about ROI. I
Yeah.
feel extremely confident. If you bring on a well-trained assistant, you will see direct ROI for the amount you're paying them for what you're now able to do with
Amen.
reaching goals or strategic partnerships or hires. It's proven. It
Yeah.
as you know,
Yeah. I
it
see it all the
works.
time. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
And going back to your question, so it was really interesting. So those 4 months I spent, doing all this cold outreach, it taught me a few different things. It taught me how to relate to all sorts of different types of individuals and find common ground. It also really taught me just best practices in sales. I had no sales background. And most people tell you sales is not about the sell, it's about the relationship. And so what I learned more than anything, I didn't necessarily learn how to be a sales expert. I learned how to really be a relationship expert. And so now I'm able to relate to hopefully folks listening to the podcast, or I'm able to relate to my staff or my clients now because it's all about listening. And I think that was some of the biggest takeaways that I had was learning how to build proper relationships and listening. And what that's now translated into, Michael, in terms of our sales here at EfficientAide, I'd say over 90 to 95% of our business comes via referral. And it's because we build solid relationships with our clients. We work with good people, we hire good people, and we go above and beyond. And that comes full circle. And so I think that was one big thing I learned that's directly a result in sales is build relationships, listen to people's wants and needs, and find ways to solve them. And we've perfected that to the point where now that's translating in lots of referrals and ultimately more sales. And on the cold side of things, on the outreach sales portion, it's allowed me to have a little bit of the sales background, understand what that life's like and what we're asking maybe some of our folks to do. And it's allowed us to really hire the right people in the right seats to help with sales. Because I've understand it, I've been in it. I understand the value of creating the relationship with that staff member, which enables them and empowers them to just thrive at their job, which allows us to bridge that other 10% gap of that just cold outreach process. So for me, in the highest level, it's truly about listening and building solid relationships. And truly, you got to believe in your core. In my core, my why, my purpose, my cause is I want to help people. And I believe it. I believe it to my core. The byproduct of that is I get to make a few bucks doing it, but that's not what gets me up every day. It's because I want to help people. And I want to instill that same value in the people I work with and the people that I surround myself with. And the correlation to that, Michael, is sales. You get more
Yeah.
sales as a result of it in varying ways just by just providing a quality service and really genuinely want to help business owners buy back their time and help them grow their business.
Yeah. It's interesting because many of us small business owners, we keep looking for a better answer, but there's not one. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I've heard that before. Build a relationship and listen. But what else? What's a faster one? It's like there's not a faster one. You can
Right.
invest in $10 million worth of sales coaching or whatever. That's still the secret sauce right there is know, like, and trust. And the only way to do that is to listen, build a relationship. So thank you
Yep.
for sharing that. I want to go back to your EOS instruction because scale the word is kind of a buzzword, if you will. I hear
Yep.
so many business owners say, I want to scale my business. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, chucking a truck, you're not scaling in your current status.
Yeah. Yeah.
one of my clients always calls those kind of, the rusted truck with the ladder strapped to the top with a rope. And, I'm like,
Yep.
you're not scaling this current business. But anyways, what point in your business did you truly scale, and what does that look like in a business?
Yeah, that's a good question, Michael. I think the first thing you have to determine is what scale looks like to you, and then truly if you want it, because it's not for everyone. To be candid, when I started my business, it was a fish day, but it was just me. I could have rode off in the sunset. I was making okay money, just running it by myself, providing support. Could have been just fine. And I want to also say for any small business owners out there, that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel this pressure to create multi-million-dollar companies. That's okay. You just find your sweet spot. So for me, though, it hit that pivotal point where one, I was starting to burn them on both ends a little too much. I was working a lot. I also really valued the relationship, and I wanted a team, and I wanted to be a part of something, and I wanted to be a leader. So that was the first kind of decision. But that's just, in EOS, and I'm probably not quoting this perfectly, but what they say is vision without traction is just a dream, right? So I had that vision, but now I was like, well, how the heck do I actually do this? And again, we keep going back to it, but again, it was surrounding myself with good people, finding people who have gone through the experience that I have, that were light years ahead of me, that have gone through the experience. And so first, I think it's just making the decision. You want to scale and what that looks like to you. To me, I was young. My version of scale was I want to build a huge business, and I want to be the thought and industry leader for assistant services. And that was my goal. That was my vision. And it's lofty. It still is today. So I think first you got to make the decision. You have to project what that looks like, and then surround yourself with the people to help guide you on ultimately making that step. So for me, what that looked like first and foremost was I had to hire someone. I had to hire a right-hand person, because the only way for me to scale, and what scale looked like to me, was to be able to bring on more clients, help more people. I was tapped out. So scale to me was first bringing on that first hire. And then for any solopreneur that's out there, it's the scariest thing you'll ever do, but it's also the most rewarding, because at that moment, Michael, I thought, wow, I'm now actually a business owner. Before I was kind of a solopreneur, EfficientAide, I probably touted myself as a bigger company than what I was. But that's one of the most exciting things, is that first hire, and it's a critical hire. So for me, scale looked like getting some additional support, which then allowed me to onboard more clients, because there's people that were trying to hire that I couldn't take on. So scale first was getting the right person, and then building the clients up to fill that person up. And then from that moment in time to this moment today, it's finding that balance between that supply and demand, right? When you need to bring on more internal people and pause, build the foundation tight again, and then do the splurge of bringing on more clients. And that's an ebb and flow that I imagine I'll be experiencing the rest of the time I'm running the business. But that would probably be my definition. How it worked for me was bringing on that first hire, scaling with more clients, and then ultimately building that balance. But again, I agree scale is a little bit of that buzzword, because again, it goes back to vision without traction, right? You have to have the foundation. You have to understand how you're going to do it and how you're going to maintain quality, or you're going to scale and you're going to scale right back down very sharply, because you're not going to be able to provide the service that you intended to.
Yeah. I always say success is intentional.
Yeah.
Like you can't find success without a plan. And that's kind of what you were talking about with the traction and everything. What were some pivots that you made that you wish you would have done differently?
The first thing that comes immediate to mind is I wasn't drinking my own Kool-Aid. I'm here preaching to business owners to delegate, to let go of the vine. It took me a while to do it, Michael, longer than I wished it would have. It was my baby, right? It's my brand. My entire professional career has been invested into EfficientAide and running EfficientAide. But at a certain point, and for any small business owner out there, you become your own worst enemy. Being that control, micromanaging, and taking too much control. Sometimes you got to let people lead, and they maybe they stumble a little bit and fail, but you have to take that leap. So I think for me, I wish I would have drank my own Kool-Aid a little bit earlier in my career, delegated a little bit earlier, brought on people probably a little bit earlier. Because instead of what happened, Michael, is I took on a lot and then you get burnt out. You get burnt out. Something that I always find, and it's just it's an untrue statement. People used to think being a small business owner, if I'm not working 67 hours a week, then I'm not doing it right. That's for the birds. If you're working 67 hours a week, you are not working effectively, right? And that is not cool. It's not cool to be doing that because there's resources out there. So in short, Michael, I'd say that was my biggest learning that comes to me intuitively right out the gut when you mentioned that was, I wish I would have let go of the vine a little bit earlier because I probably would have scaled a little bit quicker. And quite frankly, it probably would have protected some side of my personal life that I think also could have been more fine-tuned as a result of delegating earlier.
I know for a lot of business owners that I work with, they're the worst employees. So
Yeah.
it's like, they're like, well, I can't trust anybody else to do it. And I'm like, you're the worst employee here. What are you talking about? Let go of the vine, like you said. And I know a lot of business owners, now you got to have the revenue, but
Right.
I know for a lot of business owners, they wait too long, and they just keep getting their hand more and more in the cookie jar and doing more and more that they literally really can't train somebody to do everything they know to do now because they waited so long. And that's where, we try to help people let go of the vine. I love that. Let go of the vine.
Yeah.
Any other pivots that you made that you can think of that were good for your business?
Yeah, definitely. The next thing that immediately comes to mind is, and it goes back to people again. So I don't want to beat that horse dead. But for me, the next biggest pivot was getting out of my day-to-day operations. And so in EOS, they have phrases for this. But in short, I really made the pivot from going and fully sinking into a visionary role in my business. I'm not thinking as much day to day. I'm thinking a year, 3 years, 10 years down the road. But you can't think that way if you don't have someone to hold the fort down. So another extremely pivotal thing that I did is I hired a full-time COO. In EOS, they call it the integrator, right? The day-to-day, boots on the ground, operations person. Again, huge. I mean, that was letting go of a massive vine for me because I had a pulse. And don't get me wrong, I still keep a pretty good pulse of what's going on, but not to the detail that I would have earlier. Because again, I was my own worst enemy. If you're focusing on this all the time, it's very hard to step back and all of a sudden you're 5 years into your business, like, wow, I'm not where I wanted to be. So that was definitely the biggest pivotal decision, was bringing on a CEO who can run the day-to-day operations and help interface with our staff. So I'm still involved in that, but not as much as I was. And now I can sit back, and I can do speaking, I can do thought leadership, and I can help really get our company to the place I want to be in my 3-year picture, my 10-year target of where I want to be, which ultimately allows me to hire more people, contribute to the economy, and also help more businesses. So without a doubt, that was about 3 years ago, and it has dramatically transformed our business and our ability to grow the business.
You got to have somebody implementing your vision while you keep envisioning. So it doesn't work. And I always kind of mention to business owners that, like, they'll say, why would you say that's important? And for obvious reasons, but I also say, because if you don't have someone else doing it, it'll never get done. Because again, business owners are the worst employees. Like, we're procrastinators. We dabble over here. We go put this fire out over there. In the meantime, nothing's being enforced. Nothing's being implemented or holding people accountability, all that good stuff. So that's so important. So how can someone get in touch with you? How do you prefer?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the best way is through our website. It's EfficientAide.com, and that's AIDE. So EfficientAide.com. A few things there. One, there's a great submission form. And what I would recommend, and it's for a complimentary discovery call. So if you're even thinking about it at all, there's no obligation, right? If you are working nights and you're working weekends and you're burning at both ends, it can't hurt. Reach out. Let's just get on a call and just talk through what it could look like. And it's an educational conversation. It's not a sale. It's education. What's going on? Here's some ways I think that there's some solutions to this. So that's also that's the best way, is through the website. And I'll also mention on our homepage of our site, if some folks are sitting there thinking like, all right, I'm busy, but I just can't even envision what I could possibly delegate. We have a free download right on our homepage that is my top 10 things any small business owner can delegate today to an assistant. So that's definitely the best route to go. And again, if you're listening and you're feeling that stress and you're working and you don't feel like you're putting as much time into that vision and the goal, no obligations, reach out. I promise you'll leave with some sort of value from the conversation, whether we work together or not.
That's valuable. I love that 10 things you can delegate now, because I know that's one of the questions that business owners ask us. Even when we say we feel like your first employee, I agree with you. I feel like that their first employee should be that administrative assistant, just to take some of those tasks that they shouldn't be doing so that they can work on growing or scaling their business. So I encourage people to reach out. Are you on social media anywhere?
Yep. So we're on LinkedIn as well. So we have a heavy presence on LinkedIn. I'm personally on LinkedIn, happy to connect and chat. We have a corporate page where we're posting value-added articles and tips and tricks. So that's just LinkedIn for EfficientAide. It's our company profile. Also a great way to see what we have going on and a great way to engage with us as well.
Other than the Traction book, which is the EOS you're talking about.
Yeah.
Any other books out there you would suggest to a small business owner that's in that place where you were before you went with coaching?
Yeah, you hit a really sweet spot for me, because I just recently read an amazing book. If you have not read it, 100% recommend. It's Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard. Unbelievable, inspirational book, very easy read. And it is applicable for every single person who is listening to this. I mean, You will finish it in a couple hours. It's not a huge lift. And you will leave with a radical different approach to your business and how you serve customers and how you create raving fans, not only for your clients, but also for your staff. That was absolutely one that was very eye-opening for me. And quite frankly, in true visionary fashion, I read that book and almost overhauled our complete business of how we provide our service, because the goal is to create raving fans, people that, really buy in, love your service, and they're getting direct results from it. So I highly recommend that book to anybody who hasn't read it.
Well, I think you said a couple of key words when you said it'll only take you a couple hours. I guarantee everybody's online. Okay, I want that book. Because most books take longer than that.
Yes, you're spot on.
So last question, if you were in a room with full of business owners, what is the one advice you would give them?
I think the one advice I would give is, you don't have to sacrifice your personal life to be a business owner. I think I briefly touched on it earlier. I think that used to be cool. It used to be kind of trendy to say, I'm a business owner. Oh yeah, I'm working 80 hours a week. It does not have to be that way. There are resources out there. Technology is crazy. There's AI. There's so many tools. I think the biggest takeaway and advice is there are resources out there to help you. We're one of thousands of resources available to you, and there's no need. Buy your nights and buy your weekends back, right? And delegate. It's possible. This is not a dream. It is a reality. The folks that are doing this are growing their business. And I'm also seeing a direct correlation to the personal side. More time with family, with friends, pursuing your passions, filling your cup up so you can show up really, really well professionally. And I'd say that would be my biggest takeaway.
That's awesome. Great advice. Kyle, you've been awesome. Appreciate all your information and helping other small business owners.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Michael. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
Welcome to the Small Business Pivots Recap and Coach's Corner. As we wrap up our time together, I want you to take a moment to soak in the stories shared by Kyle and the incredible insights we discussed. Remember, your journey as an entrepreneur is not just about reaching the destination of success, but about appreciating the scenery along the way. Be adaptable, understand you don't know what you don't know, and that is okay. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship, the unknown. If you want the known of what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, well, you might be a better employee. You might need to go find a job. Sorry, just preaching truth. For those who love the unknown and the land of the free that entrepreneurship offers, I want to share with you my daily mantra I start every day with. I personally wrote this: every day is an exciting adventure with problems to be solved and memories to be made. Feel free to start your day with that as I do. It really makes a difference. As we transition into our Coach's Corner segment, let's dive into one actionable takeaway that you can implement right away to move the needle in your business. Today, I want to challenge you to assess your support network. Take a moment to evaluate the individuals you surround yourself with. Are they mentors and peers who inspire and uplift you? Are they guiding lights on your path to success? Research shows that the company business owners own is a product of those who influence their mindset, their decisions, and ultimately their outcomes. So if you find yourself lacking in a supportive community, now is the time to seek out new connections. Whether it's joining industry-specific groups, seeking mentorship from seasoned entrepreneurs, finding a consultant or coach like yours truly, fostering relationships with like-minded peers, prioritize building a network that empowers you to thrive. Your one action item today is research and invest in a business coach or consultant within 7 days from today. Nothing happens without a date. At Boss, we have the resources you need. Go to businessownershipsimplified.com and set up a free consultation by clicking the tab in the upper right-hand corner. Remember, success is not a solo journey. It's a collaborative effort fueled by the collective wisdom and support of those around us. Thank you for listening to Small Business Pivots. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast. If your business is stuck or you need help creating your business to run without you, go to our website, businessownershipsimplified.com, and schedule a free consultation to learn why business success starts with Boss. If you have a guest or topic suggestion for our podcast or just want to talk anything small business related, email me at michael@michaeldmorrison.com. We'll see you next time on Small Business Pivots.